It is in our Constitution. The Prime Minister does not get to decide, does not get to cherry pick which reporters are allowed to ask questions and which reporters are just censored entirely. That is unacceptable. That is how Vladimir Putin operates. That is how Xi Jinping operates. That is not how Justin Trudeau should operate. This is a major problem, not just for Rebel News, not just for me, but for every Canadian. This is not the first time that Justin Trudeau has acted like a coward. If you were following me during the federal election, you saw me crisscrossing the country, trying to get into positions where I could ask the Prime Minister questions. Real questions. Tough questions. Uncomfortable questions. Questions that the mainstream media would not ask. Whether it was on the street side in Montreal, when the police were interrogating me for trying to talk to the Prime Minister, or whether it was at an event, or whether it was at the leaders' debate, I was asking questions that the mainstream media simply refused to ask. The mainstream media is corrupt. This was never more apparent than during the federal election, when I had to sue to get access to the federal leaders' debate. We had important questions to ask about SNC-Lavalin, about blackface, about Justin Trudeau's groping victim in British Columbia. We had questions to ask that the mainstream media refused to ask. During the federal leaders' debate, we asked questions of every single leader, including Justin Trudeau. And some of those leaders decided not to answer me. And that was fine. That was their right. And they looked like fools because of it. We have questions that our viewers need answers to. It's not a vanity contest. I don't want to speak to the Prime Minister out of pride. I can think of much better ways to spend my time. I want to speak to the Prime Minister. I want the opportunity to ask him questions because our viewers have questions that need answers. We have questions that will expose Justin Trudeau as a puppet of China. We have questions that will expose his administration as corrupt and negligent. But because we're not able to ask the questions, because Justin Trudeau's bureaucracy is shielding him from us, we have launched another lawsuit. If you've been watching Justin Trudeau's morning press conferences, some people call them press conferences, I prefer to call it the Trudeau Morning Show, because that's what it is. It's a facade. It is an opportunity for Justin Trudeau's favorite reporters to ask the Prime Minister questions. Reporters who are never going to ask a critical question and never have asked critical questions in their lives. You can see the questions for yourself. Listen to this.
Yesterday, your plan was to detain migrants crossing into Canada in federal facilities. Now you're planning to send them back to the U.S., where they may be interned in ICE detention facilities and potentially even deported back to South America. Is that wise?
Do you think that's wise? That was an actual question asked by someone who pretends to be a reporter. Followed up after that on Monday was a reporter from Bloomberg. Yes, that very same Bloomberg, asking about the genitalia of the newly appointed governor of the Bank of Canada, like that is some sort of issue, some pressing issue right now. Listen to this.
So I have a very quick question regarding the Bank of Canada nomination. You've been committed to more equality and diversity across government positions. Why did your government decide to follow the same model by nominating another English-speaking man to the role instead of a francophone or a woman?
The way the Trudeau Morning Show works is 2 questions in English get asked and 2 questions in French get asked on the phone. And what I've noticed is the French questions, the reporters and the outlets, they get cycled through much more rapidly. There's a smaller pool of French reporters who the Privy Council office have deemed acceptable to ask the Prime Minister questions, or there's just less calling in. At one point in March, near the end of the month, a reporter was selected 3 consecutive days. On any given day, Le Devoir, La Presse, or La Presse Canadienne get chosen to ask the Prime Minister a question. These questions are valuable, they're important, and they always blow it. The questions they ask are almost never substantial. So I decided to call in on the French line. I wasn't getting anywhere on the English line. I'd called in almost a dozen times there. So I called in on the French line. I practiced my question, my name and introduction in French. And on that day, they, instead of selecting a variety of reporters, which were certainly there, I was calling in, they selected 2 reporters from the same outlet, Le Devoir. Now, I've called in on the French line, I've called in on the English line, and my colleagues have called in as well, and they've never been selected. And I know journalists from other outlets, like True North, have been calling in as well. They've never been selected as well. Just like in October when we sued the Federal Debates Commission, a commission that was supposed to be neutral, supposed to be nonpartisan, so that everyone had a fair shot at it, both the politicians and the reporters. We are now suing Justin Trudeau's Privy Council office. If you don't know what that is, it's the bureaucracy that is adjacent to the Prime Minister's office. It's actually in the same Langevin block building. They're supposed to be neutral, but they do the bidding of the Prime Minister's office, and it is clear that they have selected a pool of reporters who are acceptable to ask the Prime Minister's questions. Now, every reporter should be able to have access to the Prime Minister. It is in our Constitution. The Prime Minister does not get to decide, does not get to cherry pick which reporters are allowed to ask questions and which reporters are just censored entirely. That is unacceptable. That is how Vladimir Putin operates. That is how Xi Jinping operates. That is not how Justin Trudeau should operate. This is a major problem, not just for Rebel News, not just for me, but for every Canadian. Every Canadian deserves to be able to have their Prime Minister held accountable. But right now, Justin Trudeau is held in a nice little sanitary bubble designed and made for him by the Privy Council Office, an organization that should be nonpartisan, that should be indifferent to the political success of Justin Trudeau. That is why we're suing. You can help Rebel News out by going to letusreport.com. There you can sign a petition and pitch in to help our legal funds. It will cost surely tens of thousands of dollars to do it, but I'm sure it is worth it if we can even ask one question. We have the questions. We just need to be able to ask them. And a federal judge will tell Justin Trudeau that this is not how Canada operates. He cannot act like Xi Jinping in Canada. For Rebel News, I'm Cian Bexty. Go to letusreport.com. See the full story and pitch in if you can help us out. Fight back against the Privy Council Office that is protecting Justin Trudeau's political interests.